Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts football podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. From the latest science dishes, breakout stars, and all the news in between. As always, I'm Jeremiah, and I am back again for another full-pack, action-packed episode for you guys today. We have a lot to discuss. The wild card round just happened over the weekend. I will discuss each game and each winning team going into the divisional round this weekend. And I will talk about the national championship tonight between Alabama and Clemson. I will discuss that game, and I will discuss Cal firing Sonny Dykes as head coach. And I will discuss who I think is the perfect fit for this position. And I kind of think you guys already know who I'm going to go with. I think you guys already know. But anyway, let's get started here with the wild card round preview. Wild card weekend started off with the Oakland Raiders taking on the Houston Texans at NRG Stadium in Houston. And heading to this game, Connor Cook was in line to make his first ever start. Remember, Connor Cook is a rookie making his first ever start in a playoff game. So right then and there, I was like, I think they're going to struggle because of that. And the Raiders' running game was very inconsistent. Their secondary was a little so-so. And, living here in Northern California, I posted on Facebook and on Twitter that, the Houston Texans were going to beat the Oakland Raiders on my picks. I picked every game. It wasn't the only game I put on there, but I had a lot of reaction about that and saying, "Oh, well, are you just gonna give up on us?" I'm like, "Oh, come on, man, you're sleeping." I'm like, dude, you have a rookie quarterback making his first NFL start against a really good defense on the road. I don't know what. I get it that you're a fan, you got to root for your team, but come on now, you got to think logically here. You got to think very logically. And what just happened to say the Raiders happened to win this game? Because, I got to add that Houston did win this game 27-14. I have to add that. They won this game 27-14. But let's just say Oakland happened to win this game. They would have had to go to New England. So, yeah. All right. Well, anyways, so this game started off. Very, very slow for both teams. And the Raiders, they couldn't really get anything going. The score was close from 7-10 in the first quarter, but after that, it was all Houston, and the Raiders couldn't score until the fourth. So, Brock Osweiler gets his first playoff win, and Lamar Miller was very solid, 73 yards on one touchdown, but he did carry the ball 31 times, so they relied heavily on him throughout the game. And DeAndre Hopkins was the leading receiver, 67 yards for one touchdown. And the night game on Saturday was the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Detroit Lions at CenturyLink Field in Seattle. So on Friday's show, I said that Seattle was I said Detroit was going to have a tough time in this game because it is hard to play at CenturyLink Field. It's hard to play, especially on the playoffs. I don't think Russell Wilson has ever lost a home playoff game at all in his career. But, yeah, this game kind of went as I expected to go. This game was a one-score game hit in halftime, 10-3. And then it was a one-score game, 10-6 for a while until the fourth quarter when the Seahawks took over the game. So Russell Wilson was efficient as can be. Thomas Rawls put the team on his back like he was Marshawn Lynch, 161 yards on 27 carries and one touchdown. And Doug Baldwin also has a heck of a day with 104 yards and one touchdown and 11 receptions. But I think the player of the game is he made some amazing plays, by the way. But I think the player of this game is Paul Richardson. Paul Richardson made some Odell-like kind of catches out there. The first touchdown that the Seattle Seahawks had, Russell Wilson threw it in the back of the end zone to Richardson, and Richardson had a defender right in front of him, and Richardson just laid it out with one hand. A one-hand catch in the back of the end zone to give the Seahawks a 7-0 lead, and they never looked back after that. And then I think later on, in the second half, Paul Richardson had another great catch too that gave the Seahawks a very good scoring position. But I have to say he finished the game for 48 yards on 3 receptions and a touchdown. But from the catches that he made a really good impact, and I have to say he was an exciting player to watch on Saturday night. As for the Sunday games, the Pittsburgh Steelers were taking on the Miami Dolphins in Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. So the Steelers, I picked the Steelers to win this game. I said on Friday that this was going to be a blowout. They're going to win this very handily, and I was right. The Steelers won the game 30-12, and and this was Le'Veon Bell's first playoff game ever. And he finished the day with 167 yards and 2 touchdowns in his first playoff game, and his 167 yards breaks a franchise playoff record. That's the most rushing yards in a game in Steelers history. That is more than Franco Harris. That is more than Jerome Bettis. That is more than any other running back to ever don a Steelers uniform. That was his first playoff game, and I'm telling you right now, Le'Veon Bell, if Le'Veon Bell is not the best running back in the league, if you tell me that he's not the best running back in the league, then tell me who is. Because it's not Adrian Peterson. It's not him. Maybe you can make an argument for David Johnson. You can't say that I don't know if you can say about Ezekiel Elliott because he has been in the league for 1 year. And he is a product of a good O-line. But that's nothing against Ezekiel Elliott. But we've seen Le'Veon Bell in the league for about 3 years now. And I'm telling you right now, he's the best all-around running back in the game. You can't defend him. You think you can stop him in the ground attack? No, he's involved in the passing game. He is the definition of a true 3-down back. But more about this game is Antonio Brown had his first 2 touchdowns in the playoffs. Can you believe that? The first one was a 50-yard screen pass, and the second one was a 60-yarder. So his first 2 touchdowns were very long plays, and the Miami defense just had no answer for Antonio Brown and the Steelers offense. They just had no answer at all. But the one thing about this game, though, is that Ben Roethlisberger was seen in a walking boot at the end of the game, and he hurt his ankle on the last play before taking the knee. And he finished the game 13 of 18, 197, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So it's not really like in a very elite stat line, but he was important to this game. But I have to say, this game was pretty much won heavily in the fourth. But I gotta say this: if you're winning this game by a landslide, and your starting quarterback is still in the game, and you gotta get ready for the Chiefs next week, why is he in the game? Why is he in the game? You gotta think about the next round. You're about to go play at Arrowhead Stadium, one of the toughest places to play in all of football. Why is he in the game? But Ben Roethlisberger said he is expected to play. He is going to play, so it does remain to be seen. And they do play on Sunday, so he does have a full week's rest. But the Steelers will be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional rounds. And let's talk about the final game here in Wild Card Weekend, and that is the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants at Lambeau. The Giants were pretty much dominating this game for about a quarter and a half. They were up 6-0. Eli Manning was playing really good, but he did not get any help from Odell Beckham, our starting shepherd, He didn't get help from his receivers. Odell Beckham dropped a touchdown pass in the first quarter. He dropped it. And I know you guys are going to say some jokes. I know there was a lot of jokes out there saying like, oh, maybe he should never take that boat trip. Okay, maybe that boat Miami trip was a little poor timing on his part, but I'm not going to blame that on him. No. He did, okay, it's not like he did that like on a Wednesday. No, he did it on his off day. Okay, people, come on. Lay him some slack. Remember, he's a human being too. I'm not blaming out on that stupid boat trip at all. I think people are making way too much out of that boat trip thing. No. I'm not buying that one bit. But anyway, back to this game though. Odell Beckham did struggle in this game. The whole receiving core just struggled in this game. And, I think the leading receiver was Tavarius King with a 73 yards performance. He did have a long 40-yard touchdown. Will Tye has 66 yards. But, yeah, Odell Beckham really did struggle in this game. Sterling Shepard also dropped a touchdown pass. Eli Manning was the best player in this game. If you were to tell me that Eli Manning was the best player in this game, I'd say, okay, the Giants won. No, they lost. I thought this defense was the only secondary that can match up well with Green Bay's receivers, and they were overmatched in this game. Aaron Rodgers finishes the day with 4 touchdowns, so that pretty much gives him 22 touchdowns right now on the streak that he's going on. Because entering this game, he had 18 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, so he extended that to 22. And 362 yards passing. So he was busy throughout the whole entire day. Had 40 attempts. In the running game, Green Bay didn't really do a whole lot. Christine Michael finished the day with 47 yards and 10 carries. Ty Montgomery did have 27 yards and 11 carries, but Ty Montgomery was hurt during this game with a knee injury. As for the receivers, we had a big day from Devontae Adams, 125 yards, 1 touchdown. Randall Cobb has 3 touchdowns, 116 yards. I think that his touchdowns ties a Packers playoff record. And Jared Cook was involved. He had a very solid game, 48 yards and 5 catches. But as for Jordy Nelson, he was out for this game. He actually got hit in the ribs, I think, in the first half, and he was out for the remainder of the game. But the Packers were able to overcome that. And so now with the winners here, we got the Texans heading to Foxborough. We got the Seahawks heading to Atlanta. We got the Steelers heading into Kansas City. And we got the Packers heading to Dallas. So I think outside of the Patriots and Texans game, I think we're in for a really good divisional round. I really am. I'm really excited about the next round. But we will talk about that later this week, especially on Friday, about as we preview the divisional round. And, of course, if any news breaks out regarding any of these teams left in the playoffs, we will have it for you later this week on the GSMC Podcast Network. But we're going to take our first break here. And when I get back, I'm going to discuss Cal firing Sonny Dykes. I'm going to discuss the move. Was it the right move? And who I think should take over. I'm going to talk about who I think is the right man for the job. I think the only man for the job, honestly. But I will discuss that when I get back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And there is a new opening, head coaching opening that is, in college football, and that is Cal. Cal has fired Sonny Dykes as head coach of the program on Sunday. The offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, Jake Spavital, I think that's how you say his name. Spavital, there you go. Jake Spavital, I don't know why I couldn't say his name. But yeah, offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Jake Spavital will serve as interim coach as of now. And according to, in the statement made by Cal Athletic Director Mike Williams, he said, quote, Coach Dykes clearly built up our program both on the field and in the classroom, and he leaves Cal in a stronger position than when he arrived. For that alone, he deserves credit and our thanks. After our bowl win last season, we showed our commitment to him with a contract extension. But after looking at a number of factors after the end of the season, I felt that we needed a change of direction for the good of our student athletes and our program, and quote. And, in the press conference on Sunday afternoon, Williams confirmed that Dykes was technically fired, quote-unquote, without cause. But he acknowledged that Dykes is interviewed for the Baylor head coaching vacancy in December. A job that eventually went to Matt Rule was one of the factors in the termination. So, with Sonny Dykes now out at Cal, there's a head coaching opening. And there is a coach on the market that has experience coaching the Pac-12. He got fired from his last job last week. And of course, I am talking about Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly's on the market. Cal head coaching vacancy is open. Chip Kelly has experience coaching the Pac-12. He said what he did in Oregon. The thing about this is that I was actually a little surprised that Cal waited this long to fire Sonny Dykes. And, Sonny Dykes he only had one good year in Cal, and that was 2015. He led the Bears 8-5 in a victory in the Armed Forces Bowl. And remember, Jared Goff was his quarterback. And during his time, his 4 years at Cal, Sonny Dykes went 19-30 at Cal, and he has an overall record of 41-45, and that is including, as a head coach at his past jobs. But I think it took a while for Cal to make this move. Like, why didn't you do it in December? Why did you wait all the way into almost the second week of January? Like, why did you do it now? Is it because Chip Kelly was available? Or was it because you really thought Sonny Dykes wasn't the right man for the job? Maybe it was both. But I do think that this is a really good fit for Chip Kelly. And I do think that Chip Kelly will be good for this program. Because this program hasn't really had a whole lot of success. And, when you're in a conference with teams like Washington's not going anywhere. Jake Browning's he's definitely going to be even better than he was last year. That offense is young. They're not going anywhere. Then you got USC. Sam Darnold's a freshman. They're not going anywhere. And then I think UCLA is going to be back. Josh Rosen, the quarterback, is going to be back healthy. I think they're going to be better. Utah's not going anywhere. So Cal is in a conference that has gotten a lot better in the past few years. And it looks like it's getting a little bit harder to win. I remember you still got Stanford in there, even though they didn't have the typical season we're used to seeing from Stanford. They're still in there. They're still a tough team. They're actually in Cal's division. Oregon looks like, they're going to make a transition here. But I do think when you have a coach like that in the market that has had a lot of success in college, especially in your conference, he knows the conference very well. He knows that division pretty well. Why not make the call, interview him, and hire him? Like, who is going to take over this program right now? Who is the best available free agent on the market to take over this job? Who is it? Who is it? I think it's Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly, I think he's the only man for the job. I really do think it is. Because, Chip Kelly, I don't know if he's going to go to the NFL. I don't think he's going to be back. If he's going to go back to the NFL, it's going to be as a coordinator. Because he definitely needs to going back as a head coach. I think Chip Kelly needs to go back to college, solidify his legacy again. I think he needs to re-solidify himself as an established college coach. And I do think he could. I don't know if he will ever be back in the NFL. I think he's kind of done as a head coach in the NFL. But I do think if he goes to Cal, I think he's going to turn that program around within 2 to 3 years, easily. And remember, he's in the Bay Area, so he wouldn't have to move that far. He's in the Bay Area. He's already there. Why not? Why not make the call? Why not bring him in? Go ahead. Just bring in Chip Kelly. I just think this is a very logical fit. It makes too much sense for me. It just makes way too much sense for me. And I would be surprised if Chip Kelly is not the coach of this program within the next month. I would be really surprised. Because if Chip Kelly is not the coach of Cal, then I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the Cal administration is doing. But enough about that. I'm going to take my last break here. And when I get back, I will preview the national championship tonight between Alabama and Clemson. I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win. I'm going to try to break it down as best as possible for you guys. But when I get back, I'm going to talk about the national championship here at the Going to Meet Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Well, another player has declared for the NFL draft who will forego his senior season. And that is North Carolina quarterback Mitch Trubisky. He is declaring for the NFL draft, and he announced in a letter published by the Players Tribune, and he is the top-rated number 1 draft-eligible quarterback, according to Mel Kiper Jr. of ESPN. And this is what Mitch Trubisky said in his letter. After a lot of prayer and thought, I have decided to forego my senior year and enter the NFL draft. This has been the most difficult decision I've ever had to make, but no matter what happens next, I know I'll never experience something as special as being a Tar Heel. So, Mitch Trubisky is declaring for the NFL draft after having a really, really good year. Look at his stat line. He had 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,748 yards, and, North Carolina finished the season 8-5. I think they finished first in their division. But as far as Mr. Trubisky, he is not a top 5 player in this year's draft, but he's probably going to go in the top 5. And if the Browns don't take him number 1, then I can see the 49ers taking him number 1. But that really depends on who I think their next head coach is. But if the Browns don't take him, I can see the Niners taking him. If the Niners don't take him, I can practically see the Chicago Bears taking him. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars take him, even though they have Blake Bortles there. But after spending his first 2 years as a backup, Trubisky had a tremendous year. The Tar Heels do lose their starting quarterback. Their top 3 rushers and 5 of their top 6 receivers from 2016. So, yeah, North Carolina may not be the same heading into 2017. I remember running back Elijah Hood also entered the draft. He also declared for the draft as well. So this is not going to be the same North Carolina team, which is a shame. I thought if most of their players if they came back to school, I think that they would have been really good heading to the ACC next year, and I think they could have maybe compete. But Mitch Trubisky, he's not to me, he's probably going to go in the top 5, probably in the top 2 picks, but I don't think he deserves to go in the top 5. I don't think any quarterback in this draft is a franchise quarterback that you can start right away. I just don't. I think if these guys are being developed with a veteran quarterback in front of them, I can see that. But as far as starting from day one, I don't see any of these guys. And one of the quarterbacks that will be in the draft next year, that is Deshaun Watson, will be playing tonight against the Alabama Crimson Tide in the national championship. Yes, the Alabama Crimson Tide, the number 1 team, will take on number 2 Clemson. And this is the rematch of last year. And I'm actually really excited. I really am. We saw how last year went. I do think this is where I think we might be in for an even better game, but who knows? The Alabama is 14-0. Clemson is 13-1. Deshaun Watson had a really good year. 38 touchdowns passing. Gallman had a really good year. Wayne Gallman had a terrific year. And then you got guys like Mike Williams, who had 10 touchdowns for 1,267 yards. Gallman has 16. But if I had to pick a team to win this game, I'm going to have to go Alabama. And don't get me wrong, I know Alabama is going to be without Lane Kiffin as the offensive coordinator and Steve Sarkisian is going to take over. But I don't think there's going to be a huge drop-off in this in production, because remember, this is still Alabama. I do think Jalen Hurts is going to have a bounce-back game, because remember, Jalen Hurts had his worst game in the playoffs against Washington. He has the worst game when he went 7 for 14 for 56 yards. So I think he's going to have a huge bounce-back game. I think he's going to end his freshman year on a really good note. He had 22 touchdowns, and he had a heck of a season on the ground. But if I had to pick one team, it's going to be Alabama. I can't go against them. I just can't at all. And if Nick Saban wins this game, which I think he will, I think Nick Saban, you have to say, probably the best college football coach of all time. Got to put him up there with the Bear. Got to. But, heading to this game, Clemson did defeat Ohio State 31-0, and Alabama defeated Washington 24-7. So both of these teams are coming off of double-digit wins. I think this is going to be a very close game. Alabama's front seven is way too much to handle. I think they're going to. The front seven Alabama is going to make this a really close game because, Clemson is a very good offense, but I do think this defense of Alabama is going to make it tight. And don't forget about Clemson. Clemson has a very legit defense as well. But I do think with the front seven of Alabama, which is full of NFL players, by the way, I think they're going to give Deshaun Watson a tough day. But I do think this is going to be a close game. And I do think the Crimson offense is going to have its moments. But I can't go against this front seven of Alabama. And I do expect Alabama to come out on top on the Clemson Tigers, and Nick Saban will get his 6th national championship as a head coach in college football and will cement his legacy as one of the top college coaches of all time. But, we will talk about that. We will talk about this game when I come back. I will not be back. I will not be here tomorrow, but I will be back on Wednesday, and I will talk about this game. Of course, I got to get my 2 cents about it. So Anthony will join me as well. So, of course, we're going to talk about this game. But that concludes our show, guys. That concludes our show. I enjoyed talking to you guys today. I enjoyed talking the NFL playoffs. I enjoyed talking about Cal. I enjoyed talking about the national championship. I enjoyed talking about Mitch Trubisky. But, yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the show. And, you can always catch the show on Friday of platforms. But yeah, we're here every week. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. I'm Jeremiah, and you guys have a good day and a pleasant tomorrow.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.